All right, welcome back to the Florida Football Insiders podcast presented by Beef O'Brady's on the corner of Bush Boulevard and Himes Avenue. You just heard from Vince Ferrara. We gave you a good little preview of Florida, Tennessee, and now we're going to talk to Collin Sherwin. Collin is the college sports editor for DraftKings Nation. He talks all things college football, gambling, all that kind of good stuff, and he's also a huge USF supporter or follower, and follows the program very closely. So we're going to talk to Collin about the USF Florida game. We're going to preview Louisville and might even talk a little gambling. So welcome back to the podcast, Collin.
Great to be here, Jason. A wild one for USF this weekend. Didn't see that one coming, that's for sure. But yeah, they as USF tends to do in big spots, came up a little bit short.
But give them credit; they played really well. They outplayed
great
Florida for a lot of that game. You know, a couple bad snap at the last drive by the center. Yeah, the holder dropped the snap on the field goal attempt. The one thing I didn't like them trying to settle for a 50-yard field goal at the end there. They had the ball about the 25 or about the 30-yard line. It was 3rd and 10 or 12. You got to try to get more than 2 yards on a run. You got to try to make that a 40-yard field goal instead of a 50-yard field goal, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. And a 40-yard field goal might have gone through even with some bad snap. It was amazing that it got that close.
Right.
Yeah, you know what? I've probably complained more about Jeff Scott's game management than anyone. I think it's been pretty poor. I think for the most part, though, with maybe that one exception,
right,
they were fantastic on Saturday. Going for it on 4th and 1 inside their own 40, in a spot where you just have to have it because you're on the road and you're trying to win the game.
Yeah,
I thought that was great. They made some great calls on tough ones at midfield, and their clock management was pretty solid until the end of that last drive there. At the end of the half, they're middle 8. They won the middle 8, which that last 4 minutes of the first half, that first 4 minutes of the second half, dominated. That was some of their best football of the game too. So, I think if you take away a couple of penalties that were certainly questionable,
right.
There were some calls that really, they got called for a rub for OPI that looked kind of borderline.
Dubious. Right.
Yeah, kind of. And then, but it would be one thing if you're going to call that, that's fine. But then the way that where USF was being held on some drives and some possessions later and being bumped and chucked off of plays, if you're going to call it one way, you got to call both. And they just didn't, I'm fine with either, but if you're going to call it both, you got to call both. And then there was a personal foul call on Matt Hill that just seemed super questionable
right.
They had gotten off the field. It was 3rd and long and they were going to get off the field. And then that extended a drive that ended up as a touchdown. So you take away some questionable calls, some other things. I think USF was right in that game. I think that reflects on a fantastic week of game preparation and a really good job by this coaching staff to put the ball in players like Brian Petit's hands, who I think had 175 yards rushing total. So full credit to USF, but I think it also shows that the Gators are kind of mediocre this year.
Yeah, exactly.
This is not a great SEC Florida team. I think they'll get there. I think they hired a great coach in Billy Napier, and he'll figure it out if they leave him alone. But Anthony Richardson made some key mistakes in some bad spots, and I think the Gators will be fine. But USF fans that are looking to have been this close against a Florida team of yore, that's not what this is. That Utah game, man, I know what the game score says, and I know that like on the numbers that theoretically Florida was supposed to win more often than Utah was. But man, you play that game 100 times, I'm telling you, Utah's going to win that 80. That was just a bad spot. The numbers on this one, I saw one, game comparison that said, Florida was supposed to win that game 90% of the time. Well, I watch the game. I mean, I just think sometimes those stats can be misleading in a single game sample size. And so, USF, you take away the bad snap, 45 carries for 300 yards. Right. That's phenomenal on the road in the SEC. Like that's
I thought the play calling was terrific by Travis Trickett. I mean, tremendous
100%
variety, misdirection. You threw the ball just enough, but again, a very well designed game plan by that whole staff of Jeff Scott.
Yeah, for sure. Trickett in that first game, I was very critical because he's not telling broadcasters his game plan. And he's like, we're going to keep it all secret. And then they go out and it's 38-0, and okay, fine. So if you have the Glengarry plays, if you have the leads, use the leads, and then it seems like he figured whether that was by design to hold everything back for Florida or if they just sort of figured it out between week 1 and week 3.
Sure.
I'm not complaining either way. We'll take it. And I think if they play this well at Louisville, they're certainly going to cover. because that spread I have it at 14, but I think most people have it in the
12
I think
and a
it's
half,
around
12
12
and
and
a
a
half,
half,
13.
yeah, 12 and a half, 13 range right now. I would say,
Should
give
be
me
in
the
the
Bulls if
game.
they
They
can do
should
it.
be in the game.
Now, can they do this 2 in a row? That's the big question.
Now, that's
Can
my
they do
next
this
question.
again?
That's my next
Right.
question for you. Encouragement for the program, for the fan base to know, hey, Jeff Scott is showing some signs here. He can coach, he can get the guys motivated to play, but it's the consistency, not just a 1 game a year effort like this. Can you put 3, 4, 5, 6 of these in a row where the effort is really good, the execution is pretty good? You're not going to win every single game, but knowing that you're going to be competitive in all these games.
Yeah, I agree. And they have to be able to show that they can do this repeatedly. And I'm not sure that they have yet. So I'm a little dodgy. And actually, it looks like as I check the odds board for the first time today, there are now some Louisville 14 and a halves out there in the ether as well. So it seems like the line that opened at 14 that got down to I saw an 11 and a half earlier this week.
Right.
And now that has crawled up back to 14 and a half. So I'm going to have to take a look and see if there were any USF injury announcements while I was in meetings this morning. But yeah, that is
there is one. There is one. I can tell you that. Just I'm not going to tell you the name, but there is one.
One that hasn't been released to the public yet.
It may not have been released. I just trust me when I tell you there's an injury that's going to be of concern for USF.
Is offense or defense?
The O.
The O. Oh boy.
It ain't the quarterback, but it's somebody. But yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Interesting thing about this Louisville matchup. Obviously, Louisville's got a lot of Florida connections so far this year. They played UCF, Florida State. What do you see out of Louisville that either makes you encouraged for USF or makes you a little nervous about USF? They got a good quarterback. Malik Cunningham's been there 100 years, it seems like. They played a very good game against Florida State. Florida State got them there at the end. Is this a good spot for USF?
I had USF at 14 before I knew of any injury. So I thought that was a good spot. I thought it would close in the 12 to 12 and a half range. So I'm interested to see what I'm not knowing here. But for Louisville, I think Malik Cunningham is just going to be able to run pretty much at will against this USF defense. I think he's going to put up a lot of numbers. On the other hand, Louisville's defense is very poor. They tackle extremely poorly in space. They're not exactly cover machines out there. I really feel like that this is a spot where USF could use that misdirection game that they used so well against Florida. They're going to be able to get Louisville going the wrong one way. And then once they beat them to the spot, the way that Louisville tackles and has shown that they tackle this season, they're going to be able to break off big plays. So I think USF's got a shot. I mean, I will take Louisville to win at home, but I think especially if you're getting 14 points or maybe even a little bit more, if USF can show that they can do it 2 weeks in a row, that is the biggest issue, is that they've had good games in the past, but they've yet to string together 2 good performances under Jeff Scott. If they can do that this week, they'll definitely cover. And I do like their chances to possibly be in the game in the fourth quarter as well.
Do you see let's look ahead to the conference schedule. Starts next week, I believe, East Carolina. If you play well again this week, that gives you encouragement that you can probably be middle of the pack of the AAC. Is that what you see out of USF?
Boy, I don't know. You're going to need to go 5-3 in the league to get to a bowl game, and I think that seems a little tough. Temple's terrible.
Right.
Look, Temple's better. Now they've made a quarterback change, and they've brought in Kurt Warner's son,
right?
One of Kurt Warner's several sons, who will replace DeJuan Math as a quarterback. And it seems like he gave them a little bit of a lift last week against Rutgers. They covered easily against Rutgers. But I'm still not sure that there's any team in this league where you can go, okay, well, USF is clearly just going to win this game.
East Carolina's probably a winnable game. That's probably a 50-50 game at home. That's a game you should be in going into the fourth quarter.
It's a game that Jeff Scott's going to need to win no matter the result this week, because he needs to be able to show that he can win a conference game at home against a team that is kind of a 50-50. So, yeah, I feel like that Holt Naylor's, talking about guys who've been in college forever. Holt Naylor's, I think, founded the East Carolina University, and he's still there, but he makes mistakes. He's not a world beater, but he's consistent, and you know what you're going to get from him. And I will say this: it seems like some of the middling teams in the AAC this year Tulsa's maybe a little better than I thought. Tulane's probably a little bit better than I thought.
Right. Good win for
So
Tulane. Yep.
yeah, and at the top of the league, Houston is worse than I thought. I thought
Right.
Houston would be a little bit better than they are this year so far. So 5-3 is going to be tough. I don't think they can get there. If they could find a way to scrape it to 4-8 or 5-7, I think that's a perfectly fine season for where they are in this level of their development. Anything beyond that would be a bonus.
All right, Collin, tell everybody where they can find you online.
At Collin Sherwin on Twitter, Collin. Just lots of rage tweeting about USF football on Saturdays, as well as like picks and things during the week. We also have the President's Cup this weekend. I cover golf for us as well, so you'll see a lot of President's Cup content out there. Even though that's kind of a dumb event, we really shouldn't be playing it, but whatever. US is going to run through this international team, and not a lot of people are going to care. It's more of a tune-up for the Ryder Cup for next year. And so we'll do a lot of that stuff, and when college basketball starts, which I can't believe I'm saying this, college basketball is just 3 weeks away.
Crazy, right?
I know, right?
Well, keep up the great work, Collin. We'll be in touch real soon, and have a great week. And we'll be right back on the Florida Football Insiders. All right, we're back on the Powers on Sports podcast. We are going to talk a little week 3 college football and some week 2 NFL gambling trends. Got no better person to talk to than Collin Sherwin. Collin works for DraftKings Nation. He's a college football editor for them, but he's real tied into the gambling angles, and got some new software he just telling me about that he can see all the good stuff, where's all the money going. Welcome back to the podcast, Collin.
Great to be here, Jason. We are in my milieu. There's some odd screens out there that have definitely stepped to change the game a little bit, and we're now getting live odds from all sports books all over the world, just shot right into my veins. It's pretty fantastic. I'm not gonna lie.
And there have been some wild finishes in the National Football League, especially related to the point spreads and the over-unders and all that stuff in the last couple of weeks. Obviously, the miracle. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say I had a buddy who just dropped off a pile of cash at my house because his bank limited him after having, I believe it was it Arizona? He was fading Arizona on in game and just got butchered. Yeah, so
and then you had the Jets come back. The Jets come back against Cleveland. I think they had like a 99.9% chance of winning that game, and the Jets scored 2 touchdowns in the last 2 minutes with no timeouts and onside kicks and all that stuff. So crazy. Talk to me about some of the college football trends that you've seen through the first 3 weeks or so from a gambling perspective.
So some teams that I thought would be good. One was, I hit the best bet of my life, honestly. I had Kansas over 2.5 wins when the season started, and I cashed it in week 3. It's the best bet I will ever make. I really liked Kansas going into the season. They have borne that out with just some phenomenal smart play. I think Lance Leipold is one of the best coaches in the country. I think Nebraska, if they'd be foolish not to come hard at him. They also, Arizona State's a job that's going to be available. There are some, if he stays at Kansas, that's going to be fantastic for that program, but now they're going to really need to pony up to keep him because the competition's going to come for that guy, and he's really that good. As far as teams at the top, I thought Duke was going to be the worst Power 5 team this year. They're 3-0.
They play Kansas this week in the Final Four college football matchup.
In a Final Four undefeated college football matchup, the Blue Bloods play each other in Duke and Kansas. Yeah, it's been fantastic to see. I'm a little more sold on Kansas than I am on Duke at this point, just on the numbers. But I think that both teams, I think it's great for both teams that they're back in it. And also, let's give a little credit to Clark Lee and Vandy. They're not world beaters at any point by this stretch. It'll be tough for them to get an SEC game in the books, but they're doing okay, and they're where they should be at their point of their process. Syracuse, I really like what they've done so far as well this season. That miracle comeback, they probably should have lost that game, quite honestly.
Wild finish against Purdue. Wild finish.
Purdue threw it away with both hands, and the officials helped them do so. But yeah, I think Syracuse is in pretty good shape. New offensive coordinator, replacing a former USF offensive coordinator. And I think that was a really good move for that program. They're definitely moving the ball as Dino Babers did in his first couple of seasons in Syracuse. And they can be exciting. And I think they can be a team that's going to be a factor maybe 1 or 2 years from now in the ACC. I'm still not sold on Florida State. And I know
Right.
possibly the injury to Jordan Travis which makes Rodemaker the most likely starter this weekend. I'm not 100% sold on what we saw out of Rodemaker. I want to see a team that game plans and prepares to play
Right.
Rodemaker and see how he looks when somebody's got some tape on him and somebody knows, okay, this is how we're going to attack this guy. So I'm not quite sold there on Florida State. They have danced through the raindrops. I would say in 2020 and 2021, they were probably one of the unluckier / worst game managed teams in the country. And it seems like through 3 games so far that they've maybe gotten a little bit of that karma coming back the other way, but I'm still not sold in Florida State.
Let's go to the top of the heap there in college football. Is there any gambling value in Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, whether it's for or against? What are you seeing there with those kind of the heavyweights, the 3 heavyweights that we've all anticipated being the heavyweights?
Yeah. So Georgia, I'm like looking through here. So Georgia, I'm just not seeing like, anyone that's going to be able to compete. They seems like the best team. So it's Kent State this week. They're going to be able to name their score. They're probably going to cover by 45 comfortably. Kent State tends to have a little bit of offensive juice. They might be able to even put up, I think the team total in that would probably be 6.5, 7.5, somewhere in that range. So I would say that maybe you might lose a backdoor touchdown there and end up losing that one. So be careful.
With Georgia, they have the ability this year. What they didn't have last year is the offensive firepower. Bennett's a lot more confident. The tight ends are awesome. They've got good running backs, good receivers. Where last year they heavily leaned on that defense, where this year they're going to score 35 to 40 every week almost, certainly, and you have the elite defense to go with it.
Yeah, for sure. And the game that seems to be really all over the board this week is that Notre Dame North Carolina game.
Right.
Keep an eye on that one. That line has gone both sides. It's been a pick 'em. It's been one team's favored by less than 3, the other team's favored by less than 3. Right now, it appears to be North Carolina is about somewhere between 1.5 and 2.5 point favorite.
Yep.
So keep an eye on that one as well. That could be really interesting. I like North Carolina in that spot. I just don't think that Notre Dame has anything in Drew Pine, and I don't think they're going to be able to move the ball. You can put it on Tommy Rees if you want to, but it seems like they just don't have the horses right now to score the football. So, and North Carolina, their defense certainly questionable, but they will be able to score.
Drake May doing a great job at quarterback for Carolina. Younger brother of Luke May, the Carolina hoops legend back in the day. That's his younger brother.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch that team, and they've certainly played some exciting games this year for sure. Maybe not always the best played games, but they've certainly been exciting. In-state,
yeah. Go
ahead. Oh, I was gonna say, and in-state, and as far as in-state this week, keep an eye on UCF. I obviously I'm a USF grad. I'm not rooting for UCF, but it's only 20.5 right now. And I think they just smoked Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is terrible.
Right.
Jeff Collins is a dead man walking. We have already pre-written his being fired at DraftKings Nation because it's going to happen. We just don't know when.
Right.
But we're prepared. And it's just he's in deep trouble. That team is just not good at all. Jeff Sims has not gotten better, which is a shame because I think he has some talent. But that team is just terrible. They're terrible to watch on both sides of the ball.
Is there a non-Power 5 team that can make a run? Obviously, we all thought BYU, and they got smoked. Mm-hmm. I loved Oregon last week at home to beat BYU. Is there another non-Power 5 team that can make a run towards a playoff berth?
Boy, whoever wins the Sun Belt this year is going to have a case. But then App State lost in overtime at North Carolina, so if they had found a way to win that game, I think you could probably make the college football playoff case, but North Carolina, speaking of throwing it away, North Carolina did everything they could to throw that game away. But outside of that, I just don't see that there's a Power 5 or a non Power 5 team this year that's going to be able to do anything. That BYU game, I was very high on BYU before the season. I thought they had enough veterans returning, and then Oregon just went out there and mauled them. And I was surprised at the physicality of Oregon in that game. I thought they would struggle to be as physical as they were with BYU, and BYU was just rolled over.
And they were down their big wide receivers, two of their
guys, Romney and the other kid, Akua. Thank you. Yeah.
Yep. All right, give me a best bet, a college football bet you like on the board this week, and then we'll go to the NFL.
So I have a ton, but the one that I'm just gonna ride them until they lose, and that's USC. I think they're the fourth best team in the country. I think it's not even close. And the teams that they play are not anywhere close to being the fourth best team in the country.
Yeah.
Laying 6.5 this week. They have there's been three USC games. They have covered all three. I have not sweat in any of them. I have USC as just utterly dominant. People are seeing the yardage plowed up against them and they go, oh, well, they're giving up a lot of yards. Yes, but they're doing that because they're attacking and trying to get turnovers.
Right.
So they either turn you over or they give up the TD. And that's fine because if they get the ball back, they're going to go down and score with maybe if a top two offense in the country, probably. So they're playing very smart, very thoughtful football, which is their game plan is we're going to try and get the ball back. And if we don't get the ball back, we're going to score anyway. And we're just going to continue to attack downhill and lean on this offense and Caleb Williams and Jordan Addison. And that's what they need to be doing. So, yeah, I really like USC, and I'm just going to ride them into the dirt.
All right, listen to the Powers on Sports podcast. We're with Collin Sherwin, college sports editor for DraftKings Nation. Let's go to the NFL. Again, some wild finishes. I mean, there have been so many games that have been under 7 points with some just crazy finishes in the first 2 weeks. Just your overall thought, first 2 weeks of the NFL.
My excuse me, my beloved Philadelphia Eagles look pretty good. I was a little I have not exactly been a Jalen Hurts super fan. I'm not sure that he's the guy that you can win a Super Bowl with. I think he's a great human being and a really nice kid, and certainly a guy you want on your roster in some capacity. But I'm just not sure if he was your starting quarterback. And he looked through 2 weeks, he certainly shut me up. I think the Eagles have looked really, really solid. I want to see them against a little bit of better comp. They're not going to get that this week with the Commanders. It's interesting because it feels like the Dolphins have something, but that something might be overs.
Yes, a lot of points,
just
both ways.
A lot of points both ways, a lot of yardage. Tua, much like his brother Talia at Maryland, is just really good for overs because he's going to throw a lot of picks, but he's also going to score a lot too. So I sort of feel like Dolphins overs, and that number is at 53 this week, which is huge for an NFL game against the Bills. And I still feel like over is the play. 7 touchdowns in this game seems pretty easy to come by. So usually when the number's that high, you want to go over. When the number's really low, you want to go under because the market doesn't actually correct efficiently enough. So seeing a 53-point total in the NFL makes me want to go over. I do like that as well.
You nervous about the Bengals, Joe Burrow, and all that's going on in Cincinnati?
Not particularly. I think they'll be fine. Laying 5 at the Jets this week. What I'm interested to see with the Jets is how they bounce back after
Flacco. Can he repeat that performance?
Man, that guy. I don't know. Looks
they found
looks
a wide receiver though in Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's a very good wide receiver.
They have some players. It seems like they've got some talent in the building, but I don't know. I'm staying away. I think I need a little bit more sample size there. And then I guess I'm going to ask you here, what do you think of the Raiders laying 2 on the road at Tennessee? I know Tennessee's bad, but is this a bounce back spot for the Raiders after
Devontae Adams only got 2 touches last week, 2 catches for like 12 yards. They blew another. Again, they were dominating Arizona for 2.5 quarters, up 20. They had a chance to beat the Chargers in week 1. I would think they would figure out a way to win this game in Tennessee because Tennessee's bad. Their defense is bad. The offensive line is bad. No running lanes for Henry. Tannehill looks like he's doing nothing but going the other way. If the Raiders don't win this game, there'll be major questions in Las Vegas.
Well, we've all had questions. We've all had questions in Las Vegas at points in our lives. We've all been there and had some questions about what we're doing there. It's so funny with the NFL, I feel like in college, you can sort of like suss out what a team is a little bit sooner in the season, like by week 1, week 2, you kind of have a sense if this team's going to be, there's sort of a cap on the amount of talent and everything. In the NFL, it takes just so little, to turn from one way to the other. It takes 1 or 2 key players. It takes 1 or 2 key matchups. It takes a coordinator finding a way to put that talent together and put the pieces together in a way that makes a little bit more sense. So through 2 weeks, I mean, I'm high on my Eagles. I'm high on Dolphins overs.
What are what do the numbers say? Underdogs have covered more than favorites, or which way's that kind of gone through 2 weeks? Any idea?
I haven't pulled those numbers right now, but I do have I'm looking for some splits here. And it does look like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to get that on here. Yeah, I mean, look, offense is always up across the NFL, but I think the market started to price that in a bit at this point. So,
right. Give me a thought. Green Bay, Tampa, the showdown. Brady and Rodgers here in Tampa Sunday afternoon.
I'm not betting against Tom Brady at home. And it
not
does seem like
not minus 1 point. I'll take them all day.
Yeah, for sure. And look, Brady, halftime Brady. Maybe he's getting a little more rest. Maybe my neighbor lives like right over there. He's maybe he's home a little bit more with the kids, having taking Wednesdays off this year. I take Wednesdays off too, by the way. So like Tom and I have a little something in common. He's just sort of maybe that's been good for him to refresh and he's got a veteran team anyway. Losing Mike Evans though for this game is going to hurt though, for sure. He is certainly that. I mean, he's not Gronk, but he is certainly that bailout. Okay, I need to get the ball to somebody. Let me find a big target. So not having Mike Evans out there, I think will be interesting. It's a shame too. Marcus Valdes-Scantling will not be is now in Kansas City. Who actually who was, I think, is missing in Green Bay as well this season. They could certainly use him. But it's so funny. He has his big tattoo on his back of Raymond James Stadium from his time as a USF Bull. And I'm always rooting for Marquez to come back and get to play in that stadium. So I'm interested to see this one. But yeah, I mean, by the numbers, and it does seem like by the betting splits as well, that the movement has been certainly towards the Bucks. I'm seeing some 1.5s out there now. It's one. There's a 2.5 at even also that's available in the market. So the money is definitely coming in on the Bucks early.
One more thing, I'll get you out of here. Tough news, obviously, with Trey Lance going down, Jimmy G. Just your thought on that whole situation. I mean, I hate to say it, but the 49ers probably got better when Trey Lance went down.
Probably. And it turns out that John Lynch's move to just go ahead and pay both quarterbacks for a season turned out to be the right decision. Yep. Look, I was skeptical about Trey Lance, especially because he only played one game in 2020 before he got drafted. It feels like, something about the rhythm of football and then having to sit out all of 2021. I mean, he hasn't played a lot of football in the last 2.5, 3 years, and not getting the snaps and the reps in game time might have something to do with that. I hope he has a great career. I hope he's got a great future. I'm always rooting for the North Dakota State kids because I feel like anybody, whenever those FCS kids get a chance to make it at the next level, I think it's a great story and it's great for FCS football. But yeah, it's just it wasn't working. And to see Jimmy G back there, who I believe is still a free agent at the end of this season, to be playing for a lot of money. We'll see. But yeah, John Lynch sort of got proven right here, didn't he?
It was a great move to do that. Everybody wanted them to send him off to whatever purgatory, whether it was Cleveland or Seattle. That might be the move that saves their season because, again, he's the best insurance policy in football.
Absolutely.
From a backup quarterback perspective. Well, and by the way, one more North Dakota State guy, Christian Watson, Tampa Plant product, high school, Green Bay Packer, went to Plant High School. He's a North Dakota State guy too. So back in our Tampa roots.
Good old HB Dad Stadium.
That's it. Well, keep up the great work, Collin. Awesome job, man. College sports editor, DraftKings Nation. Collin Sherwin, tell everybody where they can find you online.
You can find me at Collin Sherwin on Twitter, at COLLIN, and then all of our stuff is at dknation.draftkings.com.
When is gambling going to be legal in the state of Florida here, my man?
Boy, I would say 2024 at earliest, unfortunately, that ballot measure. So yeah.
What's the deal there? That just Congress and state Senate and all that stuff?
Your governor didn't exactly write a law that was super fantastic, but well, it's a long story, but yeah, it's going to be 2024 at earliest.
Awesome, man. Have a great weekend, Collin, and check out DraftKings for all your gambling information and college football editorial stuff with Collin and his staff. Keep up the great work, man.
Thanks, Jason.
Have a great weekend.